Okay, it's time to begin. Let me introduce my co-panelists, Ellen C. Kimbrough, reference librarian at Meharry Medical College, and Megan Toops, a STEM and Instruction Services librarian at St. Louis University. Thank you for joining us, Ellen and Megan.
Thank you for having us.
Both our speakers have something unique in common. They both started their positions remotely at the beginning of the pandemic, thrusting them to adapt to a new normal and a new role. Before we dive into our questions, can you both tell us about your role, the researchers you serve, and the courses you support? Let's start with Ellen.
I'm a reference librarian. I've been at Meharry since March of last year, the end of March. But we really function so much like a hospital library because there are so few of us right now. We have a library director and two librarians and one support staff member. So really, I do it all. I do lots and lots of reference with researchers, but I do it all. Um, so the people that I work with the most are medical, dental, and public health students, but we also have centers of excellence on campus that focus a lot on research and publishing to help the poor and underserved that are really focused on public health initiatives and heavily focused right now on COVID-19. We have lots of scientists on campus that are doing biomedical research all the time. So we serve them as well. What was the last part of that? Oh, the questions, the courses we support.
Yes.
We're such a small staff, it's kind of an all hands on deck situation. But the people I've worked the most with in the past year that I've been there are the public health faculty members. I've been on their curriculum committee and heavily involved and embedded in their courses right now. And then some work with dental faculty and their courses, the anatomy and physiology in the dental school, and then several different first and second year courses in the medical school.
Thank you. And same question for you, Megan.
So my name's Megan Toops. I'm the STEM librarian at St. Louis University in St. Louis, Missouri. I work with pretty much all the STEM departments, so biology, chemistry, engineering and aviation, computer science, math and stats, earth and atmospheric sciences, so all over the place. We have a medical school library, so they take care of the medical side of things because we have a medical school, but I work with the students and faculty, so both undergraduate students and graduate students on the main campus at SLU. And the work I do is, a variety of instruction, reference, outreach, just a little bit of everything, collection development. In terms of classes, just like Ellen, I started last March. The departments have been most integrated with so far are biology and engineering. We have a very large engineering program. It's in its own college, and so I've been working with them. And biology, I have a biology background, so it was a little easier to get in with them first, and then I sort of have kind of a rollout plan for the future for starting to work with other departments. The other departments, like as they reach out to me or as I sort of generally reach out to them, we work together. But in terms of actually doing instruction, it's been mostly biology and engineering.
Okay. Thank you. Now, I know everyone here is familiar with the term embedded librarian and that it integrates librarians into the flow of instruction, both in person and remotely. And, over the years, librarians have been positioned to support faculty and students with online teaching. Now, starting with Megan, due to the pandemic, what opportunities did hybrid classrooms provide your library in reaching faculty and students?
I would say there's sort of two main things. One's kind of smaller, which is, at least for me, I used to, in a previous job, I might reach out to one faculty at a time. I wouldn't necessarily send an email blast to everyone. But because I was new and we were remote and I literally knew no one, I felt more comfortable doing that. And that's generated more discussions. And I don't spam them, right? But like, at the beginning of the semester and the end of the semester, and occasionally if something really important comes up in the middle of the semester, I'll just email either all my departments or a specific department. And like I said, that's actually generated interactions where faculty will say, I've been meaning to get in touch with you, but I haven't. And your email reminded me I'm going to do this. So that's sort of the pandemic changed the way I thought I was like, oh, that's a bad way to interact with, or the way I don't want to. And then suddenly it was like, well, actually, it's the only way I can, or that I think is going to be effective. And so it changed that. And in terms of instruction itself, though, I feel like it's given us an opportunity, and given me specifically an opportunity to integrate into classes that wouldn't have been possible before. So I work with the biology department, like I said, and there's a freshman biology introductory lab class. Well, there's over 700 students, and some of their labs are simultaneous. So the library's never been able to integrate with them because this, if you're doing instruction in person, you can't be in four classrooms at once. But because it's on Zoom, and because faculty were in that mindset, okay, let's think differently about this, suddenly there was an opportunity. So was reached out to by the faculty member who runs that lab, and ended up, they gave me a lab day, and I created an online tutorial that students could do asynchronously in that lab, but I was available on Zoom to answer questions from any of those four, ones that are going on at the same time. So I feel like what it's done is really opened up faculty to think outside the box and sort of be willing to integrate us, because especially with the asynchronous content, they realize, oh, we don't actually have to give up class time. And since they're used to working in this now, at least partially online environment, they're more open. Yeah, give us some of that content and we'll stick it in our class. So I feel like it's really, again, since I started in the pandemic, I really don't have anything to compare it to. But in my mind, it's actually, I mean, I know that's sort of bad to say it's come out of COVID. It's actually made, I feel like, an opportunity for more connection rather than less.
All right. Thank you for that thorough examples. Same question for you, Ellen. What opportunities did hybrid classrooms provide your library with reaching faculty and students?
I think right now we're mainly just, we're not really even hybrid yet. The only true hybrid learning, or students who don't have access to campus at all, are international students who are dentists, who actually came to the United States to practice, but because they're here now, they have to do 1 year, even though they're already dentists, in order to be certified in the United States. But so mainly, kind of like Megan, I've only been there for a year, and I worked in a hospital library before this. So this is my first opportunity to be embedded at all and really work with faculty instead of just giving information to providers, actually teaching people how to use resources and digging deep into that content that they are in every week in their different classes. So really for me, the two biggest things are that we've been able to, we've had more access to Blackboard. So we've been able to get into that content management system and really more often than before, I think, for the librarians that came before me at Meharry, we've been able to get deeper into the content that they're teaching. They've given us access to every class we've asked to get involved in. So we have a bigger opportunity to look deeper into the content that they're learning every single week, which then enables us to, really narrow down what we might be teaching them, how to use, whether it's individual instruction or a study group instruction, or if we're actually in the classroom. But the other thing, the most important thing I think that, or the biggest change or opportunity for us with faculty, is that students here, they have to dissect cadavers, and they haven't been able to do that in a year. So that gave us an opportunity to get with the faculty members that are so heavily involved with anatomy and physiology and work with them to find out which types of software or online platforms will work best for them. And it was a little bit of a struggle because I haven't been so heavily involved in that type of thing. Some of the things that we were suggesting were not were more on the undergraduate level. So it was a good thing because we had the opportunity to really sit down with those faculty members and say, what is it that you really need? And then we were able to work with them, even to get them to pay part of a virtual dissection software. And so that we not only were able to meet their needs, it's opened up a whole new dialogue with them. And then they've gotten so excited about our enthusiasm with working with them. And they know that we're committed to them, that the word is spreading. So all throughout the medical school, we just have so many more people contacting us. We're not even having to do the outreach because the word gets around so fast.
Yeah, I would say sort of building on that. I think Zoom or, whichever software you're using has really helped with that too, because it's like if people were scheduling meetings, someone running across campus from one meeting and someone running across campus from another meeting might have made that impossible. But now you're able to say like, okay, you're in engineering, you're in business, and I'm in, a STEM librarian. Let's all meet. We can do that because, normally we'd be all over the place on campus, but now it's able to meet really quickly, which opens up the possibility for more collaboration.
Mhm.
Speaking of, so we're just talking about outreach and whatnot and promotion. Are either of you using your institution's learning management system or your library's discovery service as an additional tool for outreach to reach your end users?
It's a quick answer. No, not that I know of, but we have a very decentralized model. We have a liaison model, but it's like very decentralized. So it's possible one of the other librarians is working more in Blackboard with faculty. But I know for me in particular, I've sometimes given people, a tutorial or videos that I know they've put into their Blackboard for that class, but I myself am not very integrated in that at all.
What about you, Ellen?
For me, it's really been amazing. We teach constantly how to use Ovid Discovery Service, and we actually use it for our webpage. So we're always sending people to the digital library page, and then helping them navigate the content there in a deep way. But we've just been bold and brazen about asking for access to everything in Blackboard. And because we're all so new, the faculty haven't had access to us in a way. Plus, because our staff went from 8 librarians and 3 support staff to even losing the library director. We had layoffs and attrition all within a few months. So we're all completely new, and they're so enthusiastic about our help that they've allowed us to put notifications in all the Blackboard classes. Like I can get into any one of them and pop up notifications about new information, new content that we have. I can get in anytime I want. We have that permission to get in and pop up all kinds of information for them in their notifications. So when they get their emails on what's new in Blackboard, it's right there. And then in addition to that, we've been able to add video from instruction sessions, like group and individual instruction sessions with students. They're fine with us popping up, an hour's worth of individual instruction that's really going to benefit all their students in a particular class. So that's been amazing.
And speaking of just students, reaching more students, being able to provide services for them, can you give us some insight about the student perspective and how has their perception of the library changed since you guys are either being remote or hybrid? Starting with Megan.
I would say again, because I don't really have something to compare it to before, other than sort of what people have told me. Um, I'm not aware of any big changes other than in terms of perception. I've heard in terms of use. Originally we actually had, I think in the fall, some uptick in terms of using the physical library, but then this semester it's gone down. I don't know if that's partly because we have fairly strict COVID measures on campus, so students when they come to the library, we have a little app where they have to have filled out to say, like, I'm clear of symptoms today, and they have to show that to actually get in the library. They're required to wear masks 6 feet away. They don't always follow that policy. But in terms of um, perceptions, I don't. Oh, actually, I do have one example. So with that biology tutorial, one thing I know is because we were able to integrate in that class, I was able to expose a bunch of students who probably wouldn't have been exposed to the library that early on. And one of my favorite quotes from, had them put a little, what have you learned today? And one of the students wrote that the library is not as scary and useless of a place that I thought it was. So I was like, my goal, I was like, my job here is done. But so, I mean, that's one person, but I would say, I'd hope that's a reflection that, he's probably not the only one who didn't really think of the library as something that would be helpful to him, especially that early in his college career. So I would say, again, that ability to reach a lot of students in their classes. I'm guessing, again, I don't know for sure. It probably has made a lot more students aware of what we can do for them who, wouldn't have thought about it before.
Mm-hmm.
And Ellen.
Same for me. Really, it's kind of funny because you're just saying all the things I was going to say. Except that, and we have pretty strict protocol too. We have to keep them distance, and it's hard because we've done everything we can possibly do. We've even removed all but one chair for every table, and removed chairs from study rooms and study carrels, and but it's a fairly big library, so we just find that they grab a chair and they all end up at the same table anyway, and we don't have time to police all that kind of thing. But it's we've been open the entire time. Our building has been the one building on campus that's been open to everyone. And the students have really utilized it. I think we were having even in the early days last year, we were having 150 to 200 students coming in and actually sitting there and staying. And so, we did everything we could to keep them as safe as we possibly could. But so many more students were in the library than people who were there previously. And because we were open, occasionally we would run into them, and we continue to run into them on the elevator. They come in and we go ahead and just grab them. We're staying a safe distance away from them, but we don't waste any time at all saying, hey, what are you studying? What's your year? What school are you in? What do you need help with? And they see that enthusiasm and they jump right on it. They immediately make appointments with us. And if we can, we go ahead and sit down with them, again, a safe distance away, but we go ahead and sit down with them, and we take as much time as we can. We let them know we'll spend as little time as you want or as much time as you want with us. And if we can't do it today, let's go ahead and set up an appointment. We're just not shy about it anymore. We don't worry about, whether we're bothering them or we're getting in their personal space. We don't have time for that. We don't have the luxury of not taking advantage of it when we do get to see them face to face. And so we pretty much pounce on them, and the word is getting out, because they're communicating with one another about everything that we can do and for them individually. And they have a totally different, the people that we've actually gotten hold of and talked with for a few minutes, they have a totally different perspective on what we can provide for them. And they don't see us as these, old crotchety little people sitting in our offices, they really see that we want to educate them. And
Okay.
it's all because of that, all because they're in the library more.
You have to strike while it's hot, and hopefully this
Mm-hmm.
this deep integration that you're doing will carry them through the rest of their time in college, and they'll understand that the library is a place to learn, a place to get help, that it's not this scary, awful place.
Mm-hmm. It's not a repository for books anymore.
Exactly. And so, it sounds like for both of you, the pandemic has brought about a lot of opportunities. Now,
Yeah, that
has it brought any new opportunities in the realm of collection development? Like, is it making you reevaluate the types of resources that you need to purchase to support all these students and faculty needs?
definitely. I know I've gotten to like my default is ebooks. Now that's if, unless they're exorbitantly expensive compared to the print book available. I always order the ebook if it's one that I'm choosing. And in terms of faculty, when I ask, solicit requests, I say, this is my preference and this is why. Because we have some students on campus, but they're not all on campus. And even if they're all on campus, we quarantine the books when they come back. So there's going to be lag time. So I let them know, okay, why do I prefer ebooks? And most of them do now too. So there's really been the shift from, the print books to ebooks. And again, not just a shift in preference, but a shift in almost like, I almost want this hell or high water if possible. Because otherwise, a population of our students aren't going to have access to those books at all. And then of course there's things like, I'm not trying to like plug Jove, but there's things like Jove too, where thinking of resources that were that the library might have been hesitant to pay for before, but then because of the faculty are like, we have to have this in order to be able to do our work.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to suddenly, collaborations with the library and other departments on campus to get money to get something like that. So thinking sort of outside the just like, okay, journals, books, databases, but thinking, okay, like what are other online, I mean, Job is a journal, but it's also more. So, thinking kind of outside the box of what collection development is or means.
Okay, thank you. Same question for you, Ellen.
Interestingly enough, one of our faculty members contacted us yesterday in a panic because we've had so much snow, and this kind of leads into a little bit different, not a different topic, but a different tack on what we're talking about. Because we're an HBCU, we're one of 4 that was awarded the Bloomberg scholarship money that was awarded a few months ago. We got $34 million. We were one of 4 schools, each that got $34 million to for scholarships for the students, but also for other services for the students, for the medical students in particular. And so we in the library jumped on it immediately. As soon as we found out about it, we started coming up with an initiative of how we could support the curriculum. And we submitted it and we got a ton of money. But we looked at, we interacted a lot with faculty in the different in the different parts of the medical school. And a couple of things that, okay, so what I said earlier, this faculty member contacted us yesterday because she had worked with us to get something called Oxford Medical Simulation, which basically is this software that enables all the students to get into this online classroom at once. And then, you have the patient, you have a nurse, you have a doctor, you have a respiratory therapist, you have all these different patients in this simulated room. And they really need this right now because we have a whole floor of one building that looks exactly like a clinic. It functions exactly like a clinic for like a family medicine type clinic. It's kind of the same thing, but it also has hospital modules in it. And so she contacted us yesterday in a panic. My students can't get here. What are we going to do? We really need Oxford. Did you get it yet? And, you know, we haven't even gotten the money yet. But we have looked into more virtual content for those reasons, but also because we got so much money awarded to the library because we really jumped on it and provided some, you know, things that could be used in the library, all kinds of technology that they really need that can be used in the library and it can be used online right now. And then later on, when we can all get together again, they'll be actually able to come into the library and use like this a Toltec Sectra table. It's a giant table. It looks like a huge dining room table that the students can interact with, and they can do this virtual dissection type thing and study different parts of the body. It's huge. It's life size. So, but they can use it online right now, and then they'll be able to use it when they come into the library. So we've had a huge opportunity just because of those funds to look at our collection differently. But most interesting to me is that we've interacted with so many students who want print books. They really want print. And, you know, that's a huge challenge right now because you can't just let them check out tons of books and then immediately, and then have them come back in and let somebody else immediately check that book out, because they have to sit around for a few days just so the virus on them dies, if there is virus on them. So, but we've come up with an opportunity to get the students in the library more, the medical students and the residents who work at the hospital that's also on our campus, by creating the Bloomberg Reading Room. So we're going to have a room in the library that is badge access only for the medical students. And we're going to have, I don't know, 200 or 300 print titles that are like evidence-based medicine type titles and textbooks. And we've never checked out textbooks before. So that's another way that we've looked differently at our collection, not only for now, but when everybody comes back.
Okay.
Yeah, that can I say what can I add one? So something that popped in my head when you were talking was another thing that we've had discussions about and are, you know, trying to advocate for is thinking about the difference between our permanent collections and temporary collections, especially for the departments who need movies and video, so a lot more like social science and humanities. Because oftentimes I think, you know, and these are not my areas, so forgive me if I'm getting the, you know, talking about this poorly, but some of those, you know, you pay hundreds of dollars, but it's only for a certain number of watches or a certain time frame. But that eats up into the budget. And so we've tried to, you know, we haven't heard back from, but we're trying to advocate up to be like, can we be given money that's separate from our book budget, separate from our subscription budget for things like that, that are just you know, we need them in the collection, but they're not really in our collection. They're just sort of temporarily there. So making the distinction, like we want to be able to grow the things that the library will be able to have in perpetuity, but faculty right now need these other things that, you know, so trying to find a balance, and then, and if we aren't able to get more money, thinking about, you know, how we may rearrange the budget we have already to accommodate that.
Okay. So sounds like for not just for both of you, libraries everywhere, COVID has just really heightened not just like, you know, library awareness, but the value of the library.
Mhm.
And this is great. But of course, with anything great, there comes a challenge. Starting with Ellen, are you finding it difficult to keep up with faculty demand now that they're relying on library services more than before?
We are, and we really covet, you know, people in this webinar contacting us, contacting me. Now I can put my email address in the chat box at the end, but we really covet help with juggling these demands, because the more they find out, it's a double-edged sword. The more they find out that we are enthusiastic and that we're knowledgeable and that we really see ourselves as educators, not just somebody who can, show them how to use something in the library or find something for them, it's exploded. Plus having a totally new staff, and not having a robust staff for a long time, they kind of got to the point where they weren't expecting a whole lot from, they weren't expecting that we could do a whole lot for them for a few years. So honestly, I don't have an answer for it. We're really struggling with it. We have a plan in place that we hope is going to help us some to because our lib guides, a lot of them were created by student workers, because we haven't had a robust staff in such a long time, and it's hard to navigate them. It's hard to find what you really need. So we have this plan in place now that we're about to get started on for lib guides, where we're totally revamping everything, to make it more user friendly, and to not have as many subject guides and have more course guides. Even though we're not going to be spoon feeding them, we need to have a more like a course guide format, where we're at least breaking it down into, okay, first year medical students, here's what we can help you with. Here's what we have for the courses you're taking in your first semester. And really breaking that down. I can't remember what you asked me. Sorry.
Oh, you answered it. And Megan, here's kind of a similar question for you, related to faculty. How do you draw boundaries tactfully and choose which departments are a priority to serve over others?
That is an excellent question. So
So
I'm going to answer the second one first, actually.
Okay.
So part of it, and I have a mentor in the library, and we've talked about this issue, because I was like, well, I have all these departments and I feel bad because I've really been mostly talking to like biology and engineering. And she was like, look, and she's in the business, and she's the business librarian. And so it's a very similar, like she has all these different sort of sub disciplines within her area. And she was like, look, my first year or two, I focused on these, and then I'm only now really getting to focus on these others. And so I think it's important just to sort of start where you are and build from that. So like I said before, my background's in biology. Now, I didn't purposely like go with biology and be like, I only want to work for you. But they actually contacted me more of them contacted me at first. And because it's the area I know personally the best, it was easier to start integrating with them. And then engineering, that came out of conversations actually with the business librarian. She's working on entrepreneurship, and integrating that with engineering. So she kind of brought me in those conversations, and then that's led to other non-entrepreneurial classes in engineering that I could work with. So for me, it's been more like, hey, start where you are. As opportunities come up, follow them, but don't feel like you have to, oh, I suddenly have to connect to everyone right now, which is what I felt at first and was going to be overwhelming. So that sort of touches on the second part. And then in terms of just setting boundaries, I think it's important to remember, at least, I mean, especially for those of us who are lucky enough and privileged enough to be faculty, to remember, like, you are also faculty. So if they come and say, hey, I want this thing, and it's unreasonable. So an example was literally, I think like 2 or 3 days ago, someone sent me a paper and they go, I want all the like 96 references from the bottom. There's like, are you or anyone else in the library? Can you like look through those and put in any ILL requests for me? And I was very polite. I just, oh, thank you for that excellent question. No, we are not, but I'm happy to train any research assistant you have on doing that for, so providing them, saying no gently and providing them an alternative, be like, I'm happy to do that. Because it's like, I don't have time to go through, like, if I did, then I'd be happy to do that for you, but I don't have time for that. There's too many other things going on, too many other, duties and priorities. That's, so remembering, like, you are their equal, not, like you are allowed to say no, and that saying no to one person is not going to end every relationship you have with
Right.
everyone, like putting it in sort of perspective, which I think is hard for us because we're in a profession, a helping profession. So anytime someone says, can you help me with this? You want to be like, yes, yes, I can help you. So I think kind of, yeah, remembering it's okay to say no.
May I
Okay.
say one more thing about that?
Yeah.
Um, you know, I think the more that they understand what we do, the better that we start to develop a real rapport with these people. The people, the faculty members, the deans, as we establish a rapport, we get to know each other a little better, then we have the opportunity to share with them what we do and the challenges that we face with especially with a small staff. But even if you don't have a small staff, it just opens up the opportunity even more to share with them what our challenges are and what we work on a daily basis. And I have one faculty member in public health. She used to be a director of public health in Nashville, and she's also an MD. So she has her private practice, but then she teaches so many different classes. She teaches in dentistry, she teaches in medicine, she teaches in the School of Public Health. So it's kind of so she knows she knows what it is to be overwhelmed with work. And so but we've been able to establish a rapport because I'm on their curriculum committee. We've had so many different conversations, and we've worked so closely together to help her students in all three of those schools, that she knows my workload, and she will write to me and say, hey, I need you to help me find, like, the most recent thing that happened was that the dental students are now having to take this class called Foundations in Public Health. This is a new thing this semester. And so she wanted to, the public health students are taking this class, but then these dental students are going to be incorporated into it. So she wanted, for every single chapter in the textbook that they use, she wanted me to find articles for dental public health, which turned out to be a real challenge. And so I told her, I said, I can work on this over time. I can give you a little bit at a time. But I just can't set aside everything else that I'm working on right now to do this. And she wasn't offended because we have this rapport now. I wouldn't say we're friends, but we understand the challenges that each one faces. And she respects me now, and she trusts me because I've spent so much time trying to provide what she needs, that I've been able to soften the blow when I say it's going to be a while. It might be that you might not be able to use some of this content that I send you.
Mhm.
Not be able to send it in time for you to get to chapter 4, by the time you're on chapter 4 already, but you'll be able to use this next semester. So I think that's a big thing, is establishing that rapport. It takes the sting out of drawing those boundaries.
Yep. All right. It's about that time to move on to Q&A. This has just gone by so fast. With campuses reopening, either being fully remote or hybrid, pre-pandemic normal probably isn't returning. So instead, I think libraries are coping with a new normal, one where, your in-person classes and using physical resources is either impossible or not preferred. Starting with Megan, how is your library going to leverage the new normal to create innovative collections to support more of these hybrid or remote learners?
Um, that's a good question. Again, because I'm new, I'm wondering, how this looked like kind of before the pandemic. But I think, kind of like we were talking about earlier, um, thinking just a switch from where my default might have been print or might have been more on campus, um, trying to have the default flip. So that doesn't mean you don't buy anything in print. That doesn't mean you don't focus, on in-person materials, but instead, your kind of defaults the other way. The other thing is, traditionally we haven't bought textbooks, which I'm sure a lot of libraries are like that, because it costs a lot of money and the turnover is so quick. Um, but I've been a little bit more flexible with that right now. I mean, it's still like one user at a time if it's an ebook that's a textbook. Um, And I don't want that to eat up a ton of the budget because I have a different budget line for each of my departments. But some of that I'm a little more flexible about. And when I'm talking to the departments and saying, you have this much money left, do you guys have anything you need for research or teaching? Occasionally they'll come back with a textbook. And if it seems like something, okay, this would be useful for your research as well, I wouldn't say premise it with, well, we don't normally buy textbooks, but in this case, I think it'll work, because I want to make sure that that doesn't then take over in this new normal and suddenly we're just, a virtual bookstore. But I also want to be flexible enough because they are in a different situation and their students are in a different situation. And yeah, so I don't know if that answered the question well, but that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Okay. And what about you, Ellen?
As far as as leveraging this challenge of virtual learning, really taking advantage of it, we have had to, interestingly enough, we have had to get deep into the accreditation standards for each school. So there are two for the medical school. There's one for dentistry, one for public health. And we're going to be opening a new program, launching a new program next semester for kind of big data, biomedical data, data systems, for healthcare, a whole new program. And so we actually have had to dig deep into those accreditation standards to share with those departments how the library supports them, because they have to turn that information in reports, and then we have to turn our own reports into medical education accreditation bodies. So in doing so, we have learned so much about the terminology that they use, like self-directed learning is one of the competencies that is expected, that they're expected to include in their syllabi. And they really have to prove that critical thinking skills, really taking what these students are learning to a new level where they're not, and we know they've already been doing this, but there's such a heavy emphasis on taking the content they learn in each class every week and then applying that information to a real world clinical scenario. So that's how those classes are taught, with lots of clinical cases and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That said, the critical thinking component and the self-directed learning component, those are two things that are so important to them. And so by learning those terms and really reading through what are these competencies that these students have to live up to, and then what are the faculty members having to do to live up to these competencies, that's enabled us to create some different scenarios for embedded librarianship that we've been able to present to the curriculum committees, really leveraging the whole, look, you have to do this virtually, and you're going to have to do it for a long time, in so many different scenarios where they really need to do hands-on learning, especially for the medical and the dental school. So just knowing what the accreditation standards are,
Mm-hmm.
it's just opened up. It helps us to talk with them better about what their needs are, and then it helps us to strategize and think through, okay, what do we have in our resources and our online tools? What do we have that we can bring to them to say, hey, you need to teach them self-directed learning. First off, we're educators. So we can help you with that. We can come up with active learning components. We can come into the classroom and help them to become self-directed learners, and not only just in the classroom, but by meeting with those students individually.
All right. I have another question from one of our attendees, and they say they've invested about 95% of their 2020 budget in digital library resources. And that's not leaving them much resources left for, print materials. How do you publicize your new acquisitions? Because students and teachers might not think that you guys are investing in regular collections anymore. So how are you getting the message out that on exactly what you're investing, and even though most of your funds are maybe going more towards digital resources, how are you highlighting everything?
That's an excellent question, because we're not, to a certain degree, or I'm not, and that actually makes me think like maybe, I should, which is, at least in terms of the things like I'm picking out, I haven't been reaching out and saying, hey, we have these things, except in circumstances where someone reached out to me about data management. It was like, I'm interested in doing stuff in my lab. And so I just went ahead and bought some stuff and then sent it to her and said, look, here's some good resources. So sort of in direct response to a particular faculty member. The same with, as soon as if a faculty member requests an item, we let them know it's available. But in terms of getting it out to the whole departments, I don't really do anything much. I mean, again, there are exceptions, like, we have SciFinder and then there's SciFinder N. So with SciFinder N, I made sure to reach out to the whole, especially chemistry, but I think I roped in a couple of the other departments and was like, it's moving towards this. They're both available, but here's the changes. So if there's sort of a big acquisition like that, same with Jove, I've made sure to, again, like blast out to my departments. But that's my main avenue at the moment is, these sort of mass emails when something like that comes along. So I guess I do that some, but more with the databases and that kind of material. But in terms of like ebooks and things like that, I actually haven't been doing that. And that makes me think maybe that's a good thing to think about doing.
And what about you, Ellen?
We've really established relationships with the Center for Educational Development and Support. So it's for at-risk students, and it's for students who know that they are struggling in an area, in one of their classes or a number of their classes. So the relationship that we've built with them, they constantly ask us, what do you have? What do you have for dental pathology students? Because they're, they have a summative exam coming up, sorry. And they're struggling in this one part of dental pathology. It's giving us the opportunity to, tailor what we give to them. And it's giving us the opportunity to know, that gives us the opportunity to go into our resources and say, wait a minute, what do we even have on dental pathology? Like, what do we have that really goes deeper into, like, what do we have with review questions? What do we have with cases? What do we have with, in terms of print and online, not just ebooks, but other resources, video and clinical calculators, just all the different things that they are going to need for as they move up in, as they move from a first year to a second year to a third year to a fourth year. Those relationships with the tutoring center, and we call it the tutoring center, but it's so much more than that. But the relationship with them has been really, really key in us knowing what we need to get or learning more about what we need to get. Just because they contact us so much with individual and group study group needs, because we're kind of working in tandem. We work in tandem and we work together more than we ever have to really figure out what the needs are collection wise. I'm sorry, I can't remember if you asked specifically about the ebook versus print type thing. Can you
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, you did?
I did.
It's hard to answer because I don't know. We don't have a huge, almost everything that we have now is digital. And I think that's budgetary in such a big way. That's a toughie.
Okay.
And I'd say in regards to that too is, at least for me, with the faculty that are requesting certain items, they're requesting either for the class or the research. So like, I know they're going to actually send it out to the people that they know are going to use it. So with sort of really specialty type items,
Mm-hmm.
even ebooks, I think they're probably getting to where they at least those where they need to go. I think the things that I order, there's probably an avenue for me to get that out to other people.
Here's another question. How will your library continue to keep providing all these services? More or less, how are you going to continue to keep doing more with less, since, a lot of libraries have fewer personnel, and this isn't because of COVID, it's just been a trend that's been happening in libraries for a while. So how do you keep up all this, like, this good work, but also protect your acquisitions budget?
Protect the acquisitions budget.
So it's like you're already having to do a lot more with less. And as I think as we have more of a fallout with COVID, and you learn more about what your budget allows, how it's, tied with, admissions. How are you going to continue to just do what you're doing, but also protect that acquisitions budget?
For us, a lot of that comes from those relationships that we're building, where we are, first thing is really spending that time with the faculty members that we have some handpicked faculty members in the medical school, a few in the other schools, but mainly in the medical school right now, that that we're continually going to say, who do we contact? Who do we sit down and talk with about what we need to get? And we're just being brazen. Like, we can't pay for this. We can't pay for Oxford Medical Simulation for 800 students. That we have to work together. So we need you guys to look at your budget, because it's not going to happen otherwise. So we've gotten bold and brazen, and more kind of a tell it like it is type thing, in a tactful way, that we know this is needed, but this situation is completely different now. We can't just go out and pick up what you want just because you need it. You're going to have to look at your budget differently, and not just expect the library to pop up and say, oh, we've got, $100,000 here that we can just throw down,
Yeah.
Because the truth is, a lot of the faculty members get, they get money, they get separate monies, and maybe it's different in a lot of different places, but they get monies, separately. The department has their budget, but then, they get monies for their courses, or for new programs, or new developments within the department. That money's there, and they may be spending it on something else. And we have to help them think differently about the library, and us as a support to them, and not a, I don't know, not a money tree,
Or ordering center. It's just, they're treating you as it's like a fulfillment center.
Excellent way to put it, because that's kind of the way they feel. And we have these faculty members too, they don't really know. We have a lot of new faculty members too, who come, like, we're starting this new PA program, probably in the next year. We finally got it accredited. So they're looking at the budget, and they wanted to meet with the library to find out what we can do for them, and how many ebooks we can get for them. And so we had to be, we all met with them at the same time last week, and just made it clear that, we have a lot for you already. But you're going to have to look, we'll give you the numbers. We'll take a look at what we know can be purchased, and take a look at our different vendors, and put you in touch with the people that you need to talk with, and go ahead and give you some figures of what we've spent on what we already know we have for, to support your curriculum.
Yeah.
And then we're just letting them know, we will support you. We will do what we can, but this is a new program. Honestly, you need to petition the medical school, and you need to petition the deans for the money that you need to support your own program from the ground up, and then we can help supplement.
Yeah.
A lot of understanding that we are supplemental.
Got it.
Yeah, to build on that a little bit, again, not trying to plug Jove here, but Jove was an example for me because it's something I always wanted to get, but it's a lot of money. But then our biology department said, we have to have this for classes. And they sent testimonials. Here's the classes we have. Here's some specific videos we need. And was like, we still couldn't afford it. So we ended up doing a share the cost between the biology department, the College of Arts and Sciences, and us. And so working with everyone with these different constituencies, we also reached out to the medical school and some other departments to see if they wanted to throw in money. At this point, they didn't. So we threw in that to get specific collections for the biology department. So it was the same thing. It was like, we can't afford to do the whole thing. We're happy to do part of it, and we are happy to be the administrator for that, to work with the vendor and things like that. But yeah, looking for more collaborations in terms of like, if you need the money, if you need the resource, we need you to contribute some of the money because it's beyond what we can afford.
Especially more with the virtual content.
Yeah.
It's astronomically more.
Yeah.
Whereas before we would look at our journal content and think like, this is so expensive. How are we going to do this? How are we going to keep these, how are we going to keep these collections, these thousands and thousands of journals? They're so expensive. And now we're finding that with virtual content that they're needing, that it's astronomically more than journal collections, which is astounding. And then the upkeep on them as well. And then if you want your students to be able to get to that content from library computers, like computer labs, or, like the price goes up, like $200,000 or $300,000 more dollars for a year's access for 500 students, and it's not one of those, okay, you can have 800 concurrent users at a time or unlimited numbers of users at a time. It doesn't work that way. You have to give them all of the faculty members, all the scientists, all the support staff, and all the numbers of the students you have right then. And then they come up with a number on how much this is going to cost. That's already astronomical. And I get it. This is very highly specialized content. I understand why it's expensive. But then if you want the students to be able to use it anytime, or like on their own devices, or sometimes they'll say, okay, well, you can use it on campus. It's going to be this amount of money. But then if you want kind of like Up to Date Anywhere, if you have a subscription to Up to Date, a regular subscription, you can get to it on your, at the hospital where you work, or at on campus. But then it goes up another $200,000 or $300,000 based on how many people are going to be using it from home. It's the same idea. So
this leaves us with a lot to think about for the future of collections and the new normal post-pandemic. And with that note, it's that time. We have finished. Thank you both of you for speaking today and answering all the questions. And you provided a lot of great insight for our attendees. And to our attendees, thank you for attending. I hope you found this to be insightful and that you'll plan to attend future Jove webinars. And just a couple final reminders. The recording of this session will be available and will be sent to you via email. And also, if you get a chance, please fill out the survey and tell us how we're doing. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. And thanks for stopping by to listen to our webinar. Again, thank you, Megan. Thank you, Ellen. This was great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.